didn't know if there's going to be any time left for me. Welcome to Acellus, all of you amazing, hardworking graduates. Yes, I may have been partially responsible for how hard you had to work for this degree. And we kind of went to the extreme, didn't we? But it's like the butterfly. I want to make sure when you graduate that your wings are inflated and you're ready to fly. You know, I have a brother. His name's Mahomes. You heard of him? A brother by another mother and another father. Anyway, I've never met Patrick, but he plays football. And right now, he's starting training camp. And if he's going to have a good year, he's going to have to work really hard to really be in tip-top shape. Now, we have some athletes here, don't we? You guys know that it takes a lot of effort to develop the toning and the skill that you need to perform in an outstanding way in sports. And so it does in life. There are a lot of things that hopefully you learned in your classes. And if I ask you to write it all down just to see what you got, it took you a long time. But the most valuable thing that you learned, in my opinion, was you learned about your ability to acquire knowledge. In our fast-changing world, things evolve very quickly, and you're going to need to be able to learn. And I hope you've realized that you can do that. I'm expecting that you're going to do some really great things in your lives. I want to tell you about a dream, a program, a project I'm working on right now. We've launched starting next school year, but already in the last several months, in fact, in Acellus Academy, a thing called Acellus Gold Spark. This is a brand new initiative in education. And last week, we filled this room with education administrators from all over the United States. And a lot of schools are embracing this new Acellus Spark. And the idea behind it is that we want to see education put to a new, higher level than it has been before. And I named it Gold Spark. First of all, did you know that I trademarked the name Gold? And people say, you can't do that. Check, it's in the record. I own the trademark for gold if it has anything to do with security. So, Gold Spark, I wanted this Acellus of ours to ignite a gold spark inside your hearts and minds that would inspire you to be the very best, most successful version of yourself that you could ever be. And now it's up to you to find that gold spark and to hang on to it and to take it to its full potential. One of my many heroes that have inspired my life was a guy that I had a chance to meet personally. His name was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan used to like to tell stories, and a lot of his stories had a message or a point, and I'd like to share with you one of Ronald Reagan's stories. It's about how things aren't always what they seem. You see, there was a guy that just loved animals. He just loved them. And so he went and applied for a job at the zoo. And when he got there, they said, well, we don't really have any openings, except we sort of have one opening. Sort of? He says, yeah, the gorilla died, and the kids love the gorilla. They come to see the gorilla, and he's dead. And so till we can get a new gorilla, would you be willing to put on a suit and pretend you're the gorilla? Like I said, I love working with animals. I didn't say I like being an animal. It's just till we get another gorilla. Okay, I'll do it. So he dressed up in the gorilla suit and he went out there and the kids came by and they loved seeing the gorilla. And so he started doing tricks for him. And he started really enjoying being the gorilla because it made the kids happy. And one day he was even swinging around on a branch like he was a real gorilla, and he accidentally went over the fence and landed in the lion pen. He looked up, and the lion jumped off the rock and came running towards him. He thought, oh no, he started screaming bloody murder. Help, get me out of here, I'm not a gorilla. Help, help, help. And the lion jumped on top of him and said, will you shut up or they're gonna fire both of us. Well, it just shows things aren't always as they seem. And I hope that you'll realize that in life when your darkest day comes. Realize that it's not as bad as it seems. And you're going to say, wait a minute, because I'm going to next say, and your best days are going to come. And on those days, realize they're not as good as they seem. They will pass. In other words, learn to live your life on a steady kill. Have goals, work at them, but don't let them turn you away from your foundation of happiness. Have within you the spark that no matter how good you do, or how big the mistake you think you've just made, that you have a mission to make this world better. You know, the world has to spin. If it stops, we've got a real mess. One side will be too hot, one side will freeze. It's your job to keep this world spinning. And you know, that is what really, really motivates me. A lot of the guys and gals that I grew up with, went to school with, have retired. And they asked me, so Roger, when are you going to retire? And I said, when I get finished. When I get finished. When are you going to be finished? I don't want to be finished. I'm having the time of my life. And one of my greatest pleasures is to get to be up here and look in your eyes as you come through and say, I just made it through the hardest high school curriculum in America. And I hope that's true. I think it's, especially those of you wearing all those white honor sashes. But for everyone, I hope in the course of this school, you've picked up that gold spark of caring for this world and everyone in it, and believing, this is the one that I hope is really unique to us, and believing that you can make a difference, because you can. I started Acellus because I believed I could make a difference. I really believed that. And it was harder than I thought. It always is. And I'm not nearly done. Out of the things I want to do with education, I'm just barely at half the list. But I have harvested some of my most wonderful, joyous memories through watching you and your success. So this isn't the end, perhaps the end of high school, but the beginning of something even better. Your life's mission, your life's career. And I hope you'll look at it that way. I wanted to share another little joke from Ronald Reagan. He's a clever guy, and he sure influenced and inspired a lot of people. But so much about what you're going to do or what you're not going to do is going to depend on your attitude. When I was in the 3rd grade, which was a long time ago, you know, we rode dinosaurs to school back then. But when I was in the 3rd grade, I had a speech impediment, and I would mix up the sound of a TH and an F. And I say, oh, that funny man. Or I say, oh, fat, funny man. And everybody would laugh at me, and it made me very self-conscious. In my third grade, the school got a speech therapist that would come and work with me once a week, and I gradually kind of got over that bad habit. But by the time I got into college, I was terrified to speak in front of a group, just terrified. And I thought, how am I going to do anything that matters in this world if I can't get up in front of people? So I decided I need to take this head on. I need to take it head on. And so I got this great idea. I will become a radio announcer. If I can talk to people on the radio, I won't be nervous anymore. So I went down to the radio station and I applied to be an announcer. And they said, well, do you have a demo tape? No. What's that? What's a tape? Where you're announcing so we can hear what you sound like when you announce on the radio. So I went home and made a tape and took it to them. And they listened to it. He says, okay, well, if we have an opening for you, we'll let you know. That means they didn't like it. And they didn't. It was terrible. That made me even more discouraged. So then I found out there was a class at the university I was attending in broadcasting. And so I decided to enroll in that class and see if I could learn how to do it. But I didn't have the right prerequisites. It was a 300 series class. That means it's your junior year, and it's for majors only, and I wasn't majoring in broadcast. So I just audited the class. That means I paid tuition, I went to class and got no credit. But while I was in that class, I learned how to run the equipment, and I made a demo tape, and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. I took it back to the radio station, said I got another tape, and they listened to it, and they gave me a job. The first day on the air was absolutely terrifying. In fact, I didn't know if I could even do it. There's something about talking in a microphone like that and knowing all those people are out there, but I did. And over time, I became more and more comfortable. Eventually, they made me the program manager of the station. And I'm still a student, but I enjoyed being part of that program and trying to get more people to actually tune into that station. Years later, I received an award. It was one of the 10 Outstanding Young Men in America award. And they put me on national television. And I remember standing there. They flew us to New York City, and it was called Good Morning America. And they turned on the camera, the red light went on, it was pointing right at me, and they asked me, so what is your name? I couldn't remember. And you know, I was so grateful that I'd had that opportunity of talking to the radio. Now I'm getting a little bit off track here. Our radio station would go off the air at midnight every night. And when I was starting out as an announcer and starting to get a little bit of confidence, I would have to do the sign-off thing. You know, you do a little speech. This concludes another broadcast day. Thank you for listening to KIXX. That's true. KIXX Radio. We'll be back on the air at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then we'd play the national anthem. We'd do that every night. And I figured by the time we were signing off, everybody had already turned off the radio. There was no one listening. There was no one listening. So one time, just one time, I said, this is Kickle Pickle Radio, and we're done. And played the national anthem. At midnight, the phone rang. And it was the station owner's wife, Phyllis Van Wagenen. What did you just do? She wanted to fire me, but her husband and his brother, they were co-owners, decided to keep me around. Well, she happened to be the mother of the girl that would eventually marry Robert Redford, who became a very close personal friend of mine. And so you just have to be careful. You never know how these things all fit back together. When Paget Monet enrolled at our college here, IST, and she was doing her opening interview, and I said, so what are your goals in life? What do you really want to accomplish, and so forth? Well, she told me some things. She said, well, for one thing, I want to meet my father. Your father? Yeah, my mother and father were separated when I was very, very young, and I want to meet my father. I want to see what he's like. Okay, good. What's another goal? I'd like to meet Robert Redford. And I says, well, you graduate with your doctorate, and I'll introduce you to Robert Redford. I don't think she believed me. But she did graduate with her doctorate. So now the pressure's on. And I can tell a lot of real interesting stories about Robert Redford. But one of them, he really liked my work in hydrogen energy. And he gave me the opportunity to help him with his solar house up at Sundance. But one day when I was up helping him figure out how to run this solar house, he got a phone call, I'm guessing from his agent or somebody, and he said, they want to pay me $1 million to wear one of their shirts in a photograph in Esquire magazine. And I thought, oh, I'd do it for 100K. And he said, no, I won't do it. Because, he went on, it's my image. A little bit of money is going to really cheapen my image. They look like nice shirts, but that's not what I want to stand for. Interesting guy.
By the way, I did meet him, and Dr. Billings did introduce Robert Redford to me.
No, I didn't.
It was a very young and foolish thing to want, but it happened. So, thank you.
So how'd it happen? No, come on. How'd it happen?
I don't know.
Yeah, you did, come on.
Well, what happened was we were at a trade show in Georgia.
She's probably making this up.
I'm not. We were selling computer and networking equipment. And we happened to walk by a place where there was, really, do you want this story told?
No.
There was a private event going on, and it was a fundraiser. So
At a big fancy place.
at a very big fancy
Tuxedos.
place. And we had not received our invitations. And he said, walk in like you are part of the event. So I did, and so did he. And as we were enjoying the music, it was actually very good music, and at the end, Robert Redford was sitting right down there. And he had 6 bodyguards around him, and they are big and they are tall, and there was no way in heaven or hell that I was going to get close at all. So we're standing there, and Dr. Billings calls out to Robert Redford, hey, Robert. And all of a sudden, psh, everything stopped. And he recognized his voice. He says, where is he? Where is Roger? So he moved his bodyguards, and he, there he is, there's the man, that's the man. And then Robert proceeded to start telling me, did you know that he made the world's first hydrogen car? I said, really? Tell me more. So then he told me some more. Did you know? I was like, no, I didn't know. Of course I knew.
Okay, that's enough. Give her an inch. She takes right over. Well, anyway, the point is that you have to have a goal and a dream and a vision. So she met Robert Redford, and she enjoyed meeting him. I enjoyed meeting him. But then she said, so where's my dad? She says, one of my goals, you said that if I graduate, you'd introduce me to my dad. I didn't say that. She says, well, how am I supposed to find him? I said, well, go look for him. She says, but we've been looking for him and no one can find him. I said, well, hire a private investigator. She said, I don't have any money. And she didn't then. This was before she started her company. I said, then become one. So she went online, found a course, and became a private investigator. She's got a badge. And then she went after the search to track down her father, and she did. And he was lying low. That's why it was so hard to track down. But interestingly, when he heard it was her, he dropped everything and came running, and they shared a very sweet and enjoyable relationship for the rest of his life. Things that are impossible take longer than things that are possible, but you still go after your goals with that gold spark of hope and a belief in yourself. And so we get back to Ronald and his little story about attitude. This is a good story, by the way. I hope you're ready for it. And I always get in a little trouble when I tell this story, but you guys need to hear this, okay? My reputation's on the line. There were two brothers, and one of them was always positive. He was an optimist. Everything was wonderful. And the other one was the opposite. He was always negative. Nothing was ever good enough. He always complained. Parents went to the school counselor, and the counselor said, well, here's what you do. And so on Christmas Day, when these two boys got up, they took one into a room. This is the pessimist kid. And it had all of the most wonderful, shiny new toys, the best of the best. There they all were. The kid went in, he looked around, he said, they'll probably all be broke by the end of the day. And he pouted. So then they went into the room where the kid was that's the optimist. He's always positive. And the counselor said, just put a big pile of manure in there for him. And so they went in, and that kid was digging through the manure like crazy. He said, with all this horse shit, there's got to be a pony here somewhere. I mean, horse manure is what I meant to say. Your attitude is going to change your life. If you believe in yourself, you're right. If you don't believe in yourself, you're still right. I really have done things that I knew I couldn't do. And those are the things I treasure the most. So believe in yourself. I thank Bill Lear for his year of mentoring me after college, for giving me the faith to do things. I saw this man that made the Learjet. He started Motorola. He did a lot of things. And he was just a normal guy. And I lived in his home. And I followed him everywhere he went. And as I did, I saw that he did it because he was brave enough to believe he could. And he wasn't any better than other people. Well, in my book he was, but in his he wasn't. Believe in yourselves and make a difference in this world. Make these Acellus Academy diplomas mean something. Thank you.